After decades together, this split has fans in shock. For years, no, for decades, their story felt untouchable. In a world where relationships often flicker out as quickly as they ignite, theirs stood firm like a monument to commitment. Through changing trends, evolving careers, and the relentless pressure of fame, they remained side by side. Fans didn't just admire them, they believed in them. They were the couple people pointed to and said, "See, real love still exists." That's why the news didn't just land, it hit like a shockwave. No warning, no dramatic buildup, just a quiet confirmation that something once thought permanent had come to an end. At first, people refused to believe it. It had to be a rumor, a misunderstanding, or another piece of internet speculation. But as more details surfaced, reality became impossible to ignore. The couple who had built a life together over decades had decided to go their separate ways. And suddenly, everything felt different. Social media turned into a storm of emotion. Fans poured in with messages ranging from heartbreak to confusion. Some expressed disbelief, others shared sadness, and many began asking the same question: if they couldn't make it work, who can? What made their relationship so powerful wasn't just time, it was consistency. They showed up for each other, publicly and privately. Through career highs and personal lows, they presented a united front. Interviews were filled with mutual respect. Public appearances radiated comfort and familiarity. There was no chaos, no constant drama, just a steady, enduring connection. But that's exactly why this moment feels so heavy. Because it challenges something people rarely question, the idea that time equals permanence. Behind the polished appearances and carefully curated moments, there was a reality no one fully saw. Relationships evolve even when they appear stable. Over years, people grow in different directions. Dreams shift, priorities change, and sometimes, without any single dramatic event, distance quietly builds. Sources suggest that this wasn't a sudden decision. It wasn't sparked by one argument or one defining moment. Instead, it was a gradual realization, one that likely took years to fully understand. A slow acknowledgement that despite everything they had built, they were no longer on the same path. And that realization is often the hardest one to face. Because walking away from something that still holds history, memories, and deep emotional value isn't easy. It requires honesty, it requires courage, and most of all, it requires accepting that love alone isn't always enough to keep two people together. For fans, the shock comes not just from the breakup itself, but from what it represents. This wasn't just another headline, it was the end of something symbolic. A relationship that had become part of people's understanding of lasting love. Now, that understanding is being questioned. People are revisiting moments from the past, old interviews, shared laughter, meaningful glances. Things that once felt genuine and unshakable are now being examined with a new perspective. Were there signs? Were there moments where something felt off? But the truth is, not everything leaves visible clues. Some changes happen quietly. They don't announce themselves. They don't create dramatic scenes. They simply exist beneath the surface, growing slowly over time until they can no longer be ignored. And in a world where public perception often replaces reality, it's easy for even the most genuine relationships to appear stronger than they truly are. Still, amidst the shock and speculation, there's something else emerging: respect. Because from what has been shared, this separation isn't rooted in bitterness or conflict. There are no public accusations, no dramatic fallout. Instead, there's a sense of calm, a mutual understanding that it's time to move forward separately. That doesn't erase the pain, but it does change the narrative. It transforms the story from one of failure into one of transition. After all, spending decades together is not something that simply disappears. It becomes part of who you are. The memories don't vanish. The impact doesn't fade. Even as they step into new chapters of their lives, the history they share will always remain. And maybe that's what makes this story so powerful. It reminds us that not all endings are destructive. Some are quiet, some are respectful, some are simply necessary. For fans, acceptance may take time. There's a sense of loss, not just for the couple, but for what they represented. But there's also an opportunity to see things differently, to understand that relationships don't have to last forever to be meaningful, that something can be real, deep, and important even if it eventually comes to an end. In many ways, this moment reflects something universal, because outside the spotlight, the same thing happens in everyday lives. People grow, people change, and sometimes, despite love and history, they choose different paths. It's not always dramatic, it's not always obvious, but it's real. And perhaps that's why this story resonates so deeply, because it's not just about them, it's about everyone who has ever believed in something lasting, only to realize that even the strongest bonds can evolve. As the world continues to react, one thing is certain: this will not be forgotten anytime soon. Not because of the shock alone, but because of what it represents. A reminder that love is complex, that time doesn't guarantee forever, and that sometimes the strongest thing you can do is let go with dignity. In the end, their story isn't defined by its ending. It's defined by everything it was. And that is something no ending can ever take away.